We had the dollar rebounding a little bit yesterday, so while the rand did trade down to 687, it also traded up to the high 690s as well. And it really seems to be about quantitative easing at this stage and how much quantitative easing we could see from the US Fed, doesn't it?
Yes, Stephen, you are right. And I mean, the dollar did gain some strength yesterday, but then again at late trade, it also gave up those gains that it gained, and that was mainly because of when we look at the commodity prices were a bit strong yesterday. And in terms of the Fed meeting, I mean, early this morning we had one of the Fed member also talking about his expectations and his views really, and it seems like there is no consensus at the Fed because the member of the Fed did express his concern regarding expanding asset purchase program, and he did say that that really posed risk for the U.S. economic recovery, and it also posed risk for things like asset bubbles also developing in the U.S.
Of course, currencies are going to be one of the focuses this weekend at the G20 meetings in South Korea. So while they are going to be talking about trade imbalances globally, competitive devaluations that we have seen from some central banks such as Brazil and Thailand are also going to be in focus. What do you think is going to come out of this G20 meeting? What's your expectations, Tebogo?
I mean, in terms of the G20 meeting, I think first of all the market or all the finance ministers will be talking about the currency, and I think China will also come under pressure given its exchange rate policy. But I don't believe that there'll be any consensus. I mean, we saw at the G7 meeting, there were a lot of debates around the currency, but then nothing came out of the meeting. And with this meeting as well, there seems to be there's going to be a lot of discussion, but I'm not expecting anything. However, the comments coming from the meetings are going to be really important, and I believe that that will lead the market and the currency going into next week and going into this week. So so I'm not expecting any consensus to be reached during this meeting.
Of course, a big week for South Africa. Next week we have consumer inflation numbers coming out on Wednesday. We also have the medium-term budget on Wednesday. So quite a lot for local investors to look at. What would you be looking for there, Tebogo?
Yeah, I mean, for next week, in terms of inflation, we are looking for inflation to moderate a bit, but then we know that inflation at the moment is not a problem, and it's not something that is also an issue for South Africa, given the slack in the economy and given that overall inflation is also coming down and is already in the target band.